إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أحسن الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. So today is our third lesson on the book Madārij al-sālikīn of Al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala. And in the previous lesson, the second lesson, we made a start looking at the introduction that Al-Qayyim brought, in which he spoke about the Quran and how the Quran has been described in the Quran, how Allah has described His book, His speech, as that which is a clear book which distinguishes between guidance and misguidance and doubt and certainty, and which Allah sent in order for it to be reflected upon and to be pondered over, and so that its reports are believed in, and that its commands and prohibitions are established and fulfilled, and so on and so forth. And he then mentioned how this book cannot be approached by the opinions of men or the desires of men, and that very sadly the Quran has been people have left the way of the Quran because they have allowed their desires, opinions, tastes, things of that nature to come in between them and the Quran. And so he's alluding to the fact that there are sects, there are people of misguidance, things entered the ummah such as opinion, ra'i, philosophy, falsafa, kalam, speculative theology. All these things entered into the hearts, and it's like they became veils on the hearts of the people, preventing them from reaching the truth and the essence of the Quran, and removing from them the actual fruits that the Quran ought to bring. So Ibn al-Qayyim complained of that situation, and after that he then went on to explain how that for a person to reach perfection, then it is by way of beneficial knowledge and righteous action. Al-ilmu al-nafi wal-amal al-salih. And to that end, he mentioned Surah Al-Asr, and mentioned in there that the four ingredients of the perfection of man, which is beneficial knowledge, which is and then the righteous action, and then mutually enjoining the truth upon each other, and then mutually enjoining patience upon each other. He said, this is what a person should be striving in every moment of his life, in every breath that he takes, that he should be seeking to perfect himself and to perfect those besides him as well. And then he went on to mention, because remember the context of the book is to show the person of Tawheed and Sunnah how he attains this perfection, how he reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that is authentic and in a way that has the correct understanding. It's hinged upon the correct belief. And different to the people of misguidance, in particular the Sufis. And the Sufis have certain words, have certain terms, they have tasawwuf, as they say, and they have certain words as well, al-haqiqa, al-tariqa, al-adwaq, al-dhawq, and al-wajd, al-wujdan. Right, these are words that they use amongst themselves to refer to certain things which are poisoned and infused with philosophy or mysticism or Gnosticism or these things which came from the other nations. So how does a person of Tawheed, how does he reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the proper steps, and how to understand these concepts and these terms that the Sufis erred in? How do we purify them from incorrect concepts and understand them in light of the Quran and the Sunnah, and then use the correct words, the correct terms, right? So it's like a purification as well at the same time. So this is what Ibn al-Qayyim laid out in the introduction, that this is what he's going to set out to do in the remainder of the book. And so then we entered into the first part of the book. As we said, the first 150 pages is all about Surah Al-Fatiha. And Surah Al-Fatiha is the essence of the Quran, and it is the essence of all revealed books. And within Surah Al-Fatiha, the verse in the middle, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, that is the essence. So within Al-Fatiha is the essence as well, which is إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. And this is the essence of all revealed books. So these two sentences here, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, this is what comprises all of the levels and the stations through which we reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so this is what the third and the rest of the book is going to deal with. What are those levels? What are those stations? Maybe 100 in total, levels and stations. We shall come to them inshallah ta'ala at the appropriate time. But here we made a start on the section on Al-Fatiha, which is from the most precious, most valuable parts of this book, because he explains to us the meanings of Al-Fatiha and all of the lofty objectives in terms of knowledge that Al-Fatiha contains. And since we recite this 17 times in a day, and we repeat it over and over again, then this is a very, very valuable knowledge that Ibn al-Qayyim has extracted and presented, and especially in the Taqrib. The original is much lengthy, but in the Taqrib, it's simplified for us to understand, a lot easier. So this is what we started in the second lesson, and what we established in the second lesson. Ibn al-Qayyim said in the title, what Al-Fatiha contains of Ummahatul Matalib, right? The loftiest pursuits that a person can pursue in religion, right? The loftiest goals, the loftiest objectives. Meaning, what are those types of knowledge that Al-Fatiha contains, which are indeed from the loftiest objectives that a person should know and understand. So we began by looking at the first three. The first one was basically at-ta'rif bil-ma'budi tabarak wa ta'ala. The first thing that Al-Fatiha contains is that it acquaints us with the one that we are worshipping, the blessed and exalted. And he mentioned how, through the word Allah, and through the name Allah, the name Ar-Rabb, and the name Ar-Rahman, in the first three verses, that this now acquaints the person immediately with the one he is worshipping. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Right? And so he also pointed out the connection between Allah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, and Iyaka Na'bud. There's a connection between that and that. Alhamdulillah and Iyaka Na'bud. So Alhamdulillah is all praise is due to Allah, who has uluhiyyah. And then we say later on, Iyaka Na'bud. You alone do we worship. So there's a correspondence between that and this. And then we say, Rabbil Alameen. Rabbil Alameen. The Lord of the worlds. The Lord, meaning the Malik, the Khaliq, the Malik, the Mudabbir, the creator, the owner, the one who regulates, controls. And corresponding to that, we say, Iyaka nasta'een. From you alone do we seek help. Why? Because you are the Rabb. And then we say, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. And that corresponds to what we say after, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Guide us to the straight path. So we are effectively invoking His mercy. And so there's a correspondence between what occurs in the surah. Anyhow, the first general point was that the first lofty objective present in Al-Fatiha is acquaintance with the Lord, the Blessed and Exalted. The second lofty objective alluded to is the establishment of the return, the resurrection, and being rewarded for the deeds. This occurs in Maliki Yawmiddin, Master of the Day of Judgment. And so obviously there's a longer discussion that will come later on in relation to that. It is Ithbatul Ma'ad, an affirmation of the resurrection. Then the third thing that we started was that from the lofty objectives indicated by Al-Fatiha is that it is a proof for the sending of messengers. It is a proof for the sending of messengers. And there are 8 different ways in which Al-Fatiha provides evidence of the necessity of the sending of messengers. We said that this is a refutation of those people. There are some people who are known as deists, right? Deists. They believe that there's a creator and a maker, but then they say that after he created the creation, he forgot his creation and ignored his creation. He had nothing to do with his creation, and he didn't send books, didn't send messengers, didn't reveal any religion. And so effectively they deny the sending of the messengers. The reason for that is that they don't believe in organized religion, as they say, as they claim, and they claim that these are man-made religions. And so this is really just an excuse for them not to follow the guidance from Allah and to live the lives that they want. And their statement is in a way, some of the scholars explain, it's more evil, than even an atheist says there's no creator, no maker, finish, end of story. You say there was a creator and a maker, he created all of his creation, then he just completely ignored and abandoned it and forgot it, and he's got no role in it, he doesn't control or regulate it. This is a very, very evil statement. So Ibn al-Qayyim went on to mention 7 or 8 different ways in which Al-Fatiha establishes the necessity of the sending of messengers, and we went through 7 of them. So he mentioned from them the fact that Allah is Rabbul Alameen, He is Lord of the worlds, He will not neglect His servants. The fact that from His name Allah, that He is the one who is Ma'luh and Ma'bud, then He must send His servants knowledge of His ubudiyah, and that can only be known by way of His messengers. Third, by way of Ar-Rahman. He is Ar-Rahman, the most merciful. His mercy necessitates the sending of messengers, more so than it does sending of rain and provision. The fourth one, from the angle of Yawmiddin, establishment of the hour and the resurrection, and in order for Him to judge them and to reward them or to punish them, then there has to be iqamatul hujjah, establishment of the proof. That can only be by way of the messengers. The fifth one, Iyaka na'bud, you alone do we worship. And so the way and the path to worship has to be from Allah Himself. It can't be based upon aql, can't be based upon ra'i, can't be based upon dhawq, like taste and how you feel. It has to be by way of the sending of the messengers. The sixth one is that we say, Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. We are asking Allah for guidance in this ayah. And so by necessity, Allah sends guidance. And that guidance has 3 levels to it. The first level is the level of al-bayan, wal-irshad, wal-dilala, meaning that the path is pointed out, that this is the path shown, right? And so this is what the messenger does. He explains the straight path, that this is what the straight path is. This is what you need to believe. These are the obligations. These are the prohibitions. This is what you keep away from. This is what right? So now the path has been explained and made clear. That's the first level of guidance. The second level of guidance is the hidayah of tawfiq, which is Allah granting you success to be upon the path, to actually be upon the path and to do what Allah has commanded you and keep away from what He has prohibited you, and to be upon the right belief, and so on and so forth. So that's in the life of this world. And then there's a third level of guidance, which is what we finished off with in the previous lesson, which is guidance on the path over the bridge over hellfire. Right? So just like Allah Azza wa Jal has laid down a path in the life of this world, which is the straight path, then there is another path which is a continuation of that path, but which is in the hereafter. So in the same way that you traverse this path, then you will traverse that path in exactly the same way. And that path is the path over the middle of hellfire. And so Ibn al-Qayyim gave us some examples taken from the Sunnah. Some people will pass like lightning, some people like the blink of an eye, some people like a speedy horse, others running swiftly, others walking, others crawling, and others taken and tossed, lacerated and so on and so forth. So he gave that similitude, and then he said that, like for like, Allah will not wrong anybody. Then the seventh, which we finished with, the seventh angle is that we know that Allah by necessity will send messengers because of the fact that we are asking guidance to the sirat. And what's the nature of the sirat that we are asking for? And he mentions 5 qualities of the sirat. Istiqama, it is straight. Secondly, al-isal ila al-maqsood, it takes you directly to where you want to be in the straightest, shortest path. Wal-qurb, nearness. So obviously, the straighter something is, the closer it is to you. And it has to be vast enough, broad enough for the people to traverse upon it. And finally, it has to be specified as being the path. It has to be specified as being the path, which Allah has done in the Quran, because He's made it clear. He mentions the word as-sirat al-mustaqim and as-sirati, in the Quran. So Allah has specified that this is the path. Right? So these are 5 attributes that we know. And from this we know by necessity, therefore, that there has to be the sending of messengers, because without the messengers, then we can't know what the straight path is. Right. So this is where we finished in the previous lesson. So today's lesson starts from this point. And this is al-mawdi' al-thamin, the 8th way in which al-Fatiha has proof of the sending of messengers. So he says, من ذكر المنعم عليهم وتمييزهم عن طائفتي الغضب والضلال. So this is from the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal has mentioned in Al-Fatiha at the end, those upon whom is Allah's favor, those, and He distinguished them from the 2 parties, the party of anger, upon whom is anger, and the party of misguidance. So this shows, therefore, that all people are divided into 3 parties in terms of their knowledge of the truth and them acting upon the truth. So all people are divided into 3 parties in relation to al-ilm wal-amal. So there are those who are al-mun'am alayhim. They are those who know the truth and who act upon the truth. So you have the ilm and you act upon the ilm. And then you have those وهم من عرفه وهم من عرف الحق واتبعه. He is the one who knows the truth and who followed it. والمغضوب عليهم وهم من عرفه واتبع هواه. As for those upon whom is Allah's anger, they are the ones who know the truth, but they followed their desires. والضالين وهم من جهله. And those who are astray are those who were ignorant of the truth. And so this division of all of the people into 3 parties, this division necessitates that there has to be messengers. If this is how people are divided, people of truth, ilm wal amal, and people of anger who know but don't act, and people of misguidance who are ignorant of the truth, then this necessitates that there must have been, or that there must be sent messengers who explain what is ilm and what is amal. And therefore, this necessitates يستلزم ثبوت الرسالة والنبوة. This necessitates the sending of the message and the sending of prophethood. Why? Because he says the evidence for this is what we see in practice. What do we see in practice when we look at the people of different religions? And likewise, among the Muslims likewise, we see those who are ignorant of the truth, those who know the truth but do not act upon it, and then there are those who know the truth and who do act upon it. Like physically we know, we can see this division exists among the people, even among the Muslims. And that's why Sufyan ibn Uyayna rahimahullah, he said, من فسد من علمائنا ففيه شبه من اليهود ومن فسد من عبادنا ففيه شبه من النصارى. So he said, whoever from our scholars becomes corrupt, then he has a resemblance to the Yahud. Right? Because an alim has knowledge, and then if he becomes corrupt, meaning that he doesn't act upon his knowledge or acts in opposition to his knowledge, then this is a resemblance to the Yahud. And whoever becomes corrupt from our worshippers, the worshippers, then he has a resemblance to the Nasara, to the Christians, because he is acting upon, he's acting without knowledge, upon ignorance. So this division necessitates that there must be something from which you deviate, either in ilm or amal, and that in turn necessitates that this must have come by way of messengers. So anyhow, these are now 8 lines of evidence to prove to make ithbat of the risala, of messengership, all contained within Surah Al-Fatiha. So it contains knowledge of Allah, acquaintance with Allah. It acquaints you with your Lord. That's why anyone who reads Al-Fatiha from the people of the earth, be he a Yahudi or a Nasrani or a Hindu or anybody else, this is Allah this is you being acquainted with your Lord when you read this surah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin. Right? You are acquainted with your Lord. So this is the first thing. And then the second thing is Ithbatul Ma'ad, establishment of the resurrection, which comes next by way of Maliki Yawmiddin. So again, when a non-Muslim reads that, then he's made to understand and acknowledge that you will be held accountable for your deeds. And your Lord will resurrect you and will call you to account and judge you, and it will either be this or it will either be that. And then after that, it is, in a more general sense, affirmation of the risala. And there are many ways in which Al-Fatiha indicates that. So this brings us now to the 4th issue then, which Ibn al-Qayyim speaks of. And this is now the sirat itself. The sirat itself. Right? This is from the lofty objectives that we understand the nature of this sirat. So he says, وَذِكْرُ الصِّرَاطِ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ مُفْرَدًا مُعَرَّفًا تَعْرِيفَيْن تَعْرِيفًا بِاللَّامِ وَتَعْرِيفًا بِالْإِضَافَةِ. So he says, the straight path has been mentioned it's mu'arraf, meaning that it is made definite. And it's mentioned in the singular. So when we look at the mention of sirat in the Quran, Allah mentions it mu'arrafan, meaning that it is in definite form, and which is done either by at-ta'rif bil-lam, which is the alif lam, to make it definite, or it is idafa. Idafa also makes it definite, meaning that when you annex it to another noun, right? It's an ascription, right? Or like possession, so to speak. So in these two ways, it has been mentioned in the Quran, which means that this path is one and it is specific and it is being made distinct from all other ways and paths, whether it be the path of the people of ignorance or the path of the people of misguidance, right? And all those other paths, Allah has mentioned them in the plural, So the sirat is mentioned in the singular and it is mentioned mu'arrafan, right? It is made definite. And as for all other paths, they are mentioned, like collectively, but they are not made single. What is an evidence for that? Well, first of all, ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. Oh Allah, guide us to the straight path. There is only one straight path. There is only one path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we see in another ayah, famous ayah that you know, وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمًا فَاتَّبِعُوهُ وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا السُّبُلَ فَتَفَرَّقَ بِكُمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِهِ ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمًا. And that this is my straight path. So this is idafa, sirati, right? This is my path. So this now has been made mu'arraf, meaning that it is specific and definite. It's a specific, particular path. وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمًا, it is straight, so follow it. And then he said, وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا السُّبُلَ, do not follow the other paths. And here he mentioned it in the plural. Such that they separate you from his path. Then we also know the hadith of Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, the famous hadith where the Messenger of Allah drew a line in the sand. He said, هَذَا سَبِيلُ اللَّهِ, هَذَا سَبِيلُ اللَّهِ. Right? Sabilullah, this is idafa. This means this is a definite, specific, specified path. Then he drew lines to the right and to the left, and then he said, هَذِهِ subul. Mentioned it in the plural. At the end of every sabil is a shaitan who invites to it. And then he recited this ayah, وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمًا فَاتَّبِعُوهُ, to the end of the ayah. So this shows that the nature of this path is that it is only this path. وَهَذَا لِأَنَّ الطَّرِيقَ الْمُوسِلِ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَاحِدٌ. There is only one path which makes you reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what he sent his messengers with, and this is what he sent his books with. وَلَا يُوصَلُ إِلَيْهِ إِلَّا مِنْ هَذَا الطَّرِيقِ. No one can reach Allah except by way of this path. وَلَوْ أَتَى النَّاسِ مِنْ كُلِّ طَرِيقٍ. Even if the people came from every other path, وَاسْتَفْتَهُ مِنْ كُلِّ بَابٍ, and they opened every single door in order to reach Allah, فَالطُّرُقْ عَلَيْهِمْ مَسْدُودَةٌ. Every other path is shut off and closed off. وَالْأَبْوَابِ فِي وُجُوهِهِمْ مُغْلَقَةٌ. And the doors are shut in their faces, every other door, إِلَّا هَذَا الطَّرِيقِ الْوَاحِدِ, except this one path, فَإِنَّهُ مُتَّصِلٌ بِاللَّهِ مُوصِلٌ إِلَى اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. For indeed it connects to Allah and makes you reach Allah the Exalted. Okay, so now here we need to stop and pause here. There's a number of things that we need to mention here. This is a refutation of Wahdatul Adyan, the people who call to the unity of religions, who say there are many different ways and many different paths and a person can take his route. And so in this way they try to unite and gather between the religions. And this is a call. This call happened in history also, because there's a connection between Wahdatul Adyan and Wahdatul Wujud. Right? So this doctrine which appeared amongst the Muslims many centuries back, where they believe that the whole of existence, there's only one existence, and all of that is Allah. There's only one existence. And this is the real meaning of Tawheed. What does it mean? Tawheed means there's only one existence and all of it is Allah. So you cannot say creator and the created, because now you've established two existences. This is shirk, right? So look at the twisted understanding. If you say there's the creator, there's a Rabb and the Marboob and the created and the Khaliq and the Makhluq, the creator and the created, you've now established two existences. And because you've established an existence alongside Allah, you've now committed shirk with Allah. It's a twisted understanding. This is batil. This is not shirk, right? In fact, what you are calling to is shirk, because you've made Allah's existence to be synonymous and the same with the existence of His creation. This means, so this means everything that we see, feel, hear, touch, breathe, everything, we seek refuge in Allah, even the things that we excrete, all of that, according to these people, is, La ilaha illallah, may Allah protect us from this evil, that we even utter the likes of this evil. So, from this belief, it therefore follows that if there's only one existence, all of it is Allah. This therefore means that every religion then is legitimate. Why? Because anything that you worship is Allah. So the one who worships the idol, the one who worships the elephant, the one who worships, the stars, the one who worships the dead person, the righteous person, all of these people, the one who worships monkeys, the one who worships trees, all of them are just worshipping Allah Himself. They are worshipping Allah Himself. And so therefore, to him His path, and to him His path, and to him His path, all of these are legitimate ways which make a person reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, as religions, we should all unite together, and the real evil is atheism. Right? So let's all the adyan, let's gather together, let's unite together, and the real challenge is to fight against atheism. This is tremendous misguidance. Very sadly, this notion of this idea has surfaced in the modern era, where even Muslims are upon this, and they will say the greatest threat and danger is atheism. Right? And this is not true, because the falsehood of atheism is apparent to everybody. Everybody knows from his fitrah and from basic reason that there has to be a Lord and a Creator. In fact, this is knowledge that is so obvious that is not in need of any evidence. And any evidence you try to seek, as Ibn al-Qayyim said, that no matter what evidence you try to seek for Allah's existence, His existence is even more apparent and obvious than the actual evidence that you're trying to bring. Right? So everybody knows that what the atheists are saying, this is just utter complete falsehood. We don't need to worry about them. But this call of wahdatul adyan is from the most dangerous of calls, and we shouldn't be ignorant and heedless of the fact that this call is being pushed and being promoted. Sometimes it's in the name of, we've got to save the planet, let's work together. Right? So they find these common grounds to use as a means of agreement. Let's all work together to save the planet. Right? So these are the earth worshippers, those who believe in Mother Earth, Gaia they call it. It's a religion. Right? And so they go to different religions and say, let's all gather and work together, and this is something we can work upon, and let's save the planet. Right? So now these become the issues of agreement. And this is batil. This is false. This is like an insidious, hidden way of coming in. Because there's one way where, like the obvious way, which is like you have these Islam haters who will come and they'll attack the Quran, is false, and your messenger is not a true prophet, and your religion is barbaric. This is like a way which no one's going to really buy into that. No one's going to believe that. Straight away your defenses and your ghira for the religion kicks in. You're not going to buy any of that, right? And so these people know and understand this very well. This is not how you undermine the truth and religion. So instead what they do, they find indirect talking points or issues, social justice issues, things like that, to bring it in from insidious, hidden ways, and then try to create agreement through that, and then slowly, step by step, dismantle elements of the religion, right? So we have to be careful of that. The point being here that as-siratul mustaqim is a refutation of the people of Wahdatul Adyan. There is only one path. It's only one path. And whether we are speaking about that which is outside of Islam or whether that is within Islam, right? This ayah, as we shall see later on, as we said, Al-Fatiha is a refutation of every deviant sect and group, right? Whether it is the Adyan, the Milal wal Nihal, whether it is the Firaq, the sects within Islam. And that will come later. Ibn al-Qayyim discusses that. But here, in a general sense, this is a refutation of Wahdatul Adyan. And so we have like the Yahud, the Nasara, the Magians, we have the Hindus, the Buddhists. All of these, in a very basic sense, we can clearly understand these cannot be true religions just by simple basic reflection, by elimination, right? Let's take them one by one. So the Yahud, for example, they say, like, if someone was to present to you a religion and say, yes, the religion of Allah is that there is one group of people who are special and chosen, and they are sparks of Allah, Himself. They are literally sparks of Allah, and they are inherently somehow superior. Allah made His creation just for them. The whole world actually belongs to them. He made it just for them. And you will not enter paradise or be favored unless you are one of those people or you are born from those people. And everybody else is there to really just like to be a good Noahide, which is you like, it's like you stick to the basic foundations of true religion, and you serve the interests of that chosen special people with special genes, and then that way you'll have a place in the hereafter. Right? So now this is based upon what? It's based upon your genes, it's based upon your ethnicity, and that's how Allah deals with His creation. Straight off, this can't be true religion. It can't be true religion. Your fitrah and your basic reason tells you that this is not justice this would not be the Lord of mankind, the Lord, the Creator. Like, this is not what true religion would be, that it's somehow invested in a particular people. This simply can't be the truth. So that has to be thrown, that's out. That's out. That can't be the truth. Because because this is a foundation of racism, supremacy, and literally this is what it produces. So if you look at the speech of some of these people, they will say that all of the nations are created to serve us, and they will be slaves to us. You can find videos of these people openly. This is not like we're making things up and we're fabricating things against them. They're saying this themselves, that everybody else is there subservient. Their wealth belongs to us because the whole earth was created for us. And then, when the Messiah comes, we'll have 8,000 slaves each, and they will do all the dirty work, and we will just sit, Literally, they are telling you this is what they believe, right? So you tell this to every person. You go to an African, you tell him that. You go to a Chinese and tell him that. And you go to a Eskimo and you tell him that. You were just created to serve a special group of people. They're the same as you. They have to eat like you. They have to drink like you. They have to relieve themselves like you. But there's something special there in the that make them. No one's going to believe that. Nonsense. This is not the Lord that I want to believe in, that you want me to believe. No, out. So that's out. It's not the Siratul Mustaqim. Then we come to the Nasara, and they come to you and they tell you that, okay, you've got to believe a one-time mental belief that Allah killed His Son to forgive you. So when you reflect upon it and you think, okay, so let me apply this principle in my own life. So, and I give this example often, that if I have a abusive neighbor, and the neighbor's always like throwing things over the wall and just doing everything to annoy me, so I think, right, we're going to put a stop to this. So let me go and take my son or whatever. I'm going to drive over him with a bus and kill him, and then go and knock on the neighbor's door and say, look, John or whoever it might be, that I loved my son so much and I loved you so much that I killed my son, so that if you believe that I did it, for your salvation, then I'll overlook everything that you've been doing. Like the car window that you broke and the things that you're throwing over, and so just believe, all you got to believe is just say, look, I believe that you killed your son because I so loved you that you wanted to forgive me. And as long as you believe that and say that to me just once, then everything is bygone and is past. Now you try and sell that as a religion to somebody, he's going to think you're mad, right? So that's out. That can't be true religion, can it? It can't be the straight path. So then after that you have the Magians, Majus, which is good and evil. There's a God of good and there's a God of evil, right? And the God of evil somehow is able to oppose the will of the Lord and the Creator of everything. So he can bring into the creation something that Allah doesn't want, that's something that Allah is not pleased with, and he does it outside of Allah's will, right? So again, with this, how do you think, well, how is Allah then Lord of the worlds and the Creator of everything then, if something happens in his dominion that he doesn't allow to happen, right? So again, this is out. The fitrah and aql can't accept and can't believe this. And then you have, for example, the Hindus, the Hindu religion, which is like another racist type of, because it's a caste system, right? And there's transmigration of souls, so that basically in this life you just happen to be, the lowest caste because in the previous life you maybe did some deeds, and in the next life you're going to end up being like maybe a crab or something, or a fish, we don't know, but and this is all based upon the idea of transmigration of souls, and and obviously what you worship, you have multiple deities, and this the fitrah is not inclined towards this. It's not inclined towards this type of belief, worshipping a monkey or an elephant or this or that, whatever, and this doesn't appeal to the fitrah. Fitrah knows it's not correct. Then you have Buddhism, so we can go one by one through all of them. Buddhism, you don't believe in any specific god, or Taoism or Shintoism. Basically, you can choose any god that you want. The most important thing is you just use it as a means for spiritual cleansing and betterment, and so you can take any belief that you want, right? Whether you want to believe in multiple gods or a single god or whatever, just take that belief, but use it as a basis of spiritual purification. So again, this is like, okay, if the belief doesn't count, if you're saying that you can take any belief, then where's the haqq and batil then? Or where's haqq and batil in that then? So I can use the belief that somehow, like the earth is a god, or the elephant is my god, or and then I'll build a system on top of that just for purpose of spiritual purification. So where's the haqq and batil? I could take a totally false idea and build a religion on that false idea and claim that it's good. So that there is not, So that is in relation to the adyan, and then likewise even from within Islam, from all the firq that appeared, we could probably do the same thing, but just for the purpose of brevity and conciseness, because we want to move on. The nature of the path, as-sirat al-mustaqim, there is only one path. It is mentioned in the Quran, mu'arraf, bi-al or it is bil-idafa, right? It is mentioned either with the definite article or it is mentioned by annexation, by idafa, which means it is specific, particular, it's designated, it's one, as opposed to all other paths. And as Ibn al-Qayyim said, the door is shut in your face. Every other path, the door is shut in your face. You can't come through Yahudiya, Nasraniya, this, that, whatever. It is shut in your face. Right? There's only one path, which is this path of the messengers and the prophets, which obviously is the Islam, which the Messenger of Allah was sent with. Okay. So now that this is established, so this is from the Matalib al-Aliyah, from the lofty objectives out of Surah Al-Fatiha, is just the knowledge of the path itself, right? The next point from the Matalib, which is in Surah Al-Fatiha, is, okay, if this is the nature of the path, if the path is only one, then we'll read the speech of Ibn al-Qayyim. وَلَمَّا كَانَ طالب الصراط المستقيم طالب أمر أكثر الناس ناكبون عنه مريدا لسلوك طريق مرافقه فيها في غاية العزة والنفوس مجبولة على وحشة التفرد وعلى الأنس بالرفيق نبه الله سبحانه على الرفيق في هذه الطريق وأنهم هم الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين وحسن أولئك رفيقا. So the next point is that he says, when the person pursues and seeks this path as explained, which is one path, specific, and not the other paths, and he is in the minority, right? Because most people of the earth are not seeking this path. So when a person decides, right, this is the path that I want, I'm going to be on this straight path, then straight away he's going to realize, hang on, most of the people are not like what I'm pursuing. Most of the people are upon something else. They diverted away from this, right? So when a person sets out on this path, then he knows that this path is the path in which there is honor. And when you pursue this path, you know that you are going to be a stranger. You're going to be a stranger. It's going to be strange. And you will find that the company begins to dwindle, becomes small. There's not many people with you. And so, because this is the nature of the truth, then in the Quran and in Al-Fatiha, by indication, Allah Azza wa Jal has made the seeker of this path to be aware that there is another company that is with you if all the other people are deserting and abandoning you, right? So the point being that in Al-Fatiha, when we say Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, the mention of Sirat al-Mustaqim, then it's a hint also that since you are going to be traversing this path and you seek this path, and this is a path of loneliness and strangeness, and few people are going to be on this path, you know, in terms of ilm and amal, it's not just like non-Muslims, but it's also among the Muslims as well, that you are going to be a stranger, then there's a hint here in order to make you not despair and not feel that you are lonely and not feel that you are alone. There's a hint that there is other company on this path that is actually with you, right? And so here he mentioned that نبه الله سبحانه على الرفيق في هذه الطريق. Allah indicated this company, this companionship, when he said in this is in Surah An-Nisa, verses 68-69. Before that, Allah says, وَلَا هَدَيْنَاهُمْ صِرَاطًا مُسْتَقِيمًا. We would most certainly have guided them to the straight path. وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولِ. And whoever obeys Allah and the Messenger, then he said, أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين وحسن أولئك رفيقا. Right? Then Allah, meaning the path of those whom Allah has granted favor. So this now is a direct connection. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. This is where the connection is, right? So Allah is, so by way of صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم, that is hinting or pointing to this ayah, أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين. So here they will be with those whom Allah has favored from the prophets and the truthful and the martyrs and the righteous, and what an excellent company they are. Right? So here Allah attributed the sirat to those upon whom is Allah's favor, to indicate to the reader and to the seeker of the straight path that irrespective of who abandons you and whatever strangeness that you might feel and the loneliness that you might feel by yourself, and obviously we all experience this loneliness in different ways. And this could be, it could be someone who is a Muslim abandoned by his family because he accepted Islam. It could be someone who is upon the Sunnah in a sea of innovation, abandoned by his people, right? He feels alone, he feels lonely. So Allah is indicating here that your company consists of those upon whom Allah has bestowed His favor. Why? In order to remove, as Ibn al-Qayyim says, لِيَزُولَ عَنِ الطَّالِبِ لِلْهِدَايَةِ وَسُلُوكِ الصِّرَاطِ وَحْشَةُ تَفَرُّدِهِ مِنْ أَهْلِ زَمَانِهِ وَبَنِي جِنْسِهِ. So that the person might, this strangeness might end for the seeker of the path. And, he feels alone, strange amongst his people, from the people of his same, from his jins, from his tribe or his nation or his people. And for him to realize that his companion in this path are those whom Allah has bestowed His favor upon them. Just like, and he mentions some statement from the Salaf, كما قال بعض السلف عليك بطريق الحق ولا تستوحش لقلة السالكين وإياك وطريق الباطل ولا تغتر بكثرة الحالكين. Upon you is to follow the straight path, and do not feel strange or isolated or lonely due to the few people who traverse it. And beware of the path of falsehood, and do not be deceived by the abundance of those who are destroyed by traversing upon it. Now, Ibn al-Qayyim goes on to say, so once he's made this point, meaning that this is another lofty objective hinted at or indicated in Al-Fatiha, which is that as someone on the straight path, do not despair, do not feel lonely, do not feel isolated, do not feel strange. Even though you do feel that, know that you have company, which is the company of those who are also on this path, upon whom is Allah's favor. So then he says, وَكُلَّمَا اسْتَوْحَشْتَ فِي تَفَرُّدِكَ فَانظُرْ إِلَّا الرَّفِيقِ السَّابِقِ. So every time you feel this feeling of strangeness, then just reflect and think of the prior company. So in other words, practically speaking, what does it mean? Like if you are someone who is, you are surrounded by the Khawarij, for example, Takfiris. Don't despair, because your company are the likes of the companions, and the likes of the Tabi'een, and the likes of, you have a company. And if you are surrounded in a sea of, Sufis, or surrounded in a sea of Qadariyah, or surrounded in a sea of a mixture of different things, don't despair. You have company. You have company of the prophets and messengers and those who followed in their way. That's your company. They are there with you on the straight path, conceptually speaking, even though they're not physically there with you, but they are there with you. Right? So, and not only that, to the extent that a person of Tawheed and Sunnah, he even takes delight in the fact that you have to remember this straight path is the straight path of all the prophets and messengers. So for example, let me illustrate to you. Right, so One of the sects in Islam is the Murji'ah. The Murji'ah, right? They claim that actions are not from Iman. An action is only belief. And it is by belief alone that you are given salvation. Right? This is the way of the Murji'ah, right? So they basically expel actions from Iman. But this deviation isn't something new and unique to Islam. This is something that came in the time after Isa alayhi salam, right? Because from the followers of Isa alayhi salam are those who basically innovated what we know after Islam to be irja, right? So basically Paul came along and he basically said that faith is just, a one-time acknowledgement that Jesus died for your sins, and as long as you believe that once mentally, you will be saved. Then the law isn't really necessary, and you don't need to be justified by way of deeds and the law, right? It's belief alone that gives you salvation. This is the bid'ah of the Murji'ah. And the Salaf in the time of Isa, who were the Salaf, his companions, they refuted this batil. I mentioned this in the lesson the other day. Right? So if you look in the New Testament, you look in the second epistle of James, and you read what James is writing in there, it's as if, as I said before, it's as if you read that and you read Ibn Battah and al-Lalaka'i and the books of the Salaf, you think, hang on, this is absolutely identical. Like what he's saying here, refuting the Murji'ah, the Pauline Murji'ah. I'm reading exactly the same thing here, right, in the books of the scholars of the Muslims. So my point being that when we mention this here, ihdina siratul mustaqim, guide us to the straight path, and we read this here, an'ama Allahu alayhim min al-nabiyyin was-siddiqin was-shuhada was-salihin, then our company is not our company. We are thinking here, my company is Isa alayhi salam and the companions with him who are refuting the Murji'ah and refuting whatever. That's my company as well. And so when you think of it like that, it gives you a strengthening of the heart, and it gives you encouragement to be upon the truth. And any dismay or isolation or strangeness or despair, it vanishes. And that's exactly what Ibn al-Qayyim is saying here, that every time you feel strangeness or isolation, then look at the prior company. Think about the prior company. That's your company. Right? Musa alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam, Ibrahim alayhi salam, Dawood, Sulaiman, because we have a greater right to these prophets than the Yahud and the Nasara and other than them. So he continues, wahris ala al-lihaqi bihim, be eager to meet them, wa ghudda tarf amman siwahum. Turn away your attention to those besides them. Don't pay any attention to those besides them. لَن يُغْنُوا عَنْكَ مِنَ اللَّهِ شَيْئًا. They're not going to save any. They're not going to be able to benefit you in anything from Allah. And وَإِذَا سَاحُوا بِكَ فِي طَرِيقِ سَيْرِكَ فَلَا تَلْتَفِتْ إِلَيْهِمْ. And if they start shouting at you from their path, don't even turn to them. فَإِنَّكَ مَتَى الْتَفَتَّ إِلَيْهِمْ أَخَذُوكَ أَوْ أَعْقُوكَ. Right? Because if you now start turning to those people and you give them attention, then either they will take you with them, or they will, they will dismiss you anyway. Like, do you understand? Like when you from the straight path, if you turn to someone as you're traversing on the straight path, and then you start being diverted and pay attention to someone, they will do one or two things with you. They will either entice you and take you with them, or they will just dismiss you and have nothing to do with you. So why put yourself in that humiliating situation in the first place? You should rather continue and not pay any attention to them to begin with, right? So they don't have any of those two options with you. Right, so now next, Ibn al-Qayyim gives two beautiful examples, right? These are two beautiful examples. And what he's saying here is, it's all connected, that once you are upon the straight path, Tawheed, Sunnah, way of the Salaf, upon the right belief, worshipping Allah upon the Sunnah, away from bid'ah, right? He's giving two beautiful examples which we should keep in mind, which allow us to keep focused and remain upon the truth and not be distracted by anybody. Why? Because there are many. If you are upon the straight path and the turuq and the subul are many, then you have all of these people trying to come and attack you, divert you, catch your attention. So the situation is very, very dangerous for a person of Tawheed and the Sunnah. But these are two beautiful examples that Ibn al-Qayyim gives, which we should always keep in mind. So he says, وَقَدْ ضُرِبَ لِذَلِكَ مَثَلًا فَلْيَكُونَ مِنْكَ عَلَى بَالٍ. He said there are two similitudes that have been struck for this scenario. What scenario? That you are traversing upon the straight path. People have deserted you, you're alone, you're by yourself, right? You feel lonely. And then there's people trying to scream and shout at you as well. So what do you do? So he says the first example, رَجُلٌ خَرَجَ مِنْ بَيْتِهِ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ لَا يُرِيدْ غَيْرَهَا فَعُرِضَ لَهُ فِي طَرِيقِهِ شَيْطَانٌ مِنْ شَيَاطِينِ الْإِنسِ فَأَلْقَى عَلَيْهِ كَلَامًا يُؤْذِيهِ. Right, so he says the first example is an example of a man. He leaves his house, he goes to the mosque for the prayer. He doesn't desire anything but going to the mosque. On the path to the mosque, he comes across, or someone comes across him, a man who is a devil from the devils of the men. So it's a man who is a shaitan. And then he starts hurling abuse at him, which obviously harms him and offends him. So what does he do? So he stops on the path. Now he starts refuting him, starts replying to him, right? Now they become watamasaka, right? So they now become embroiled with each other. And فَرُبَّمَا كَانَ الشَّيْطَانُ شَيْطَانُ الْإِنسِ أَقْوَى مِنْهُ فَقَهَرَهُ وَمَنَعَهُ عَنِ الْوُصُولِ إِلَى الْمَسْجِدِ. Maybe this shaitan from the men is actually stronger than him. So he overwhelms him, dominates him, subdues him, and prevents him from reaching the masjid until, the prayer, he loses the prayer. And وَرُبَّمَا كَانَ الرَّجُلُ أَقْوَى مِنْ شَيْطَانِ الْإِنسِ وَلَكِنْ اشْتَغَلَ بِمُحَاوَشَتِهِ عَنِ الصَّفِّ الْأَوَّلِ. So maybe you might be stronger than him. Maybe the man is actually stronger than that shaitan from the men. So he embroils with him, dominates him, but still that prevents him from the first row, from reaching the first row. So he's not missed the prayer, but he's not reached the first row. He's ended up at the back. Right, so in other words, when he turns to that person and gives him attention, then he's been diverted away from his path. But if he had knowledge, فَإِنْ كَانَ لَهُ مَعْرِفَةٌ وَعِلْمٌ زَادَ فِي السَّعِي وَالْجَمْزِ بِقَدْرِ. So if he was someone who just, with all earnestness, ignored everything, didn't pay any attention to it, just walked straight ahead, went, and turned away from everything, and he just feared losing the prayer or whatever else, then لَمْ يَبْلُغْ عَدُوُّهُ مِنْهُ مَا شَاءَ. Then the enemy would not have achieved from him what the enemy wanted, because that's what the enemy wants from you. The enemy wants from you, okay, I can't take him off the path, but let me just engage him, waste his time, embroil him, delay him, right? Let me just do that. So if you stop and you give that person any attention, well, that's it. You've just been held back from the lofty pursuit that you were engaged in, and he's now, preoccupied you in something that is you are losing out from it. The second example he gives, similar, is the second example. المثل الثاني الذبي أشد سعيا من الكلب ولكنه إذا أحس به التفت إليه فضعف سعيه فيدركه الكلب فيأخذه. So this second example given by Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he says there's a gazelle, like a deer gazelle, which is swifter than a dog. You can run faster than a dog. But when the gazelle perceives that there's a dog and it just stops and it turns like this and it stops, and in a moment it basically just, instead of just running, it just stops and gives attention to the dog. Right? In that moment when it does, فَضَعُفَ سَعْيُهُ, Now it's the running has been compromised, and so the dog will catch the gazelle and then take it. Right? Why? Because you just stopped us like, okay, what's this? What's happening here? And then by the time that split second, those like few seconds you've wasted there, the dogs took advantage and it just caught you, right? Because you stopped to give attention when you shouldn't. So these two examples that Ibn al-Qayyim has given, they have, in fact, these have applications in different ways. I'll give you another illustration. I sometimes use these examples for people who suffer from waswasa, because the principle is basically the same, right? So physically, in the realm of the physical, outside the mind, there are distractions. There are people who are trying to distract you and waste your time and to entice you, right? And if you stop and give them any attention, I mean, there's many examples of this. It could be, for example, the people of disbelief. They maybe revile and abuse the Messenger of Allah because they want to get you angry. They want to make you become enraged as a way of, and they do it for different reasons, because they want you to become angry. Then they can, take pictures of you, right, with an enraged face, and then they'll blast it all over and say the religion of peace. And they got this guy with a long beard, somewhere in Pakistan, somewhere, whatever, with a face, right? They're trying to enrage you because they want to draw out this, So you just ignore them. Allah has guaranteed that He will protect His and safeguard His messenger. Allah has sufficed His messenger. Inna kafaynaka al-mustahzi'in. Right? We have sufficed you against those who mock. So we pay no attention to those people, right? We pay no attention to those people. So this example is many. The people of bid'ah, people of dalala, likewise, they're trying to entice us all the time with different things. Yes, it's one thing refuting them with knowledge for the person who is able and fit to do that. But it's another thing just engaging with them pointlessly, needlessly, without any reason or without any cause. So this applies physically to the people of disbelief. Likewise, it applies to the people of misguidance from the people of bid'ah. Even those people, you see, even you have those from those who were upon the way of the Salaf, then they became misguided. They fell into a fitna. They followed someone in his misguidance. It could be people like al-Ma'ribi, al-Halabi, al-Hajuri, people like that. Right? And then they are there to try to distract you and to throw things at you. And it's just a waste of time. They're trying to just entice you and waste your time. Leave them. Don't give them any attention. Continue in the straight path. So we have that aspect of it. And then also there's an aspect where we can apply the same examples given by Ibn al-Qayyim to the waswasa in the realm of the mind. Right? Because shaitan throws something into the mind, an idea or a thought, an evil thought. If you now stop and you engage with the thought and you try to battle the thought, then you've got caught up. And this is how the waswasa sets into the mind of an individual, right? So what happens is a person has an evil thought, right? He has an evil thought about Allah, and he has an evil thought about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he feels really bad. He thinks, how could I think a thought like this? Astaghfirullah, like it's whatever thought he might have. And he feels really evil, right? So now the thoughts come in, and now he's engaged with the thought. And he's allowed the thought to have an anchor in his mind. Like the ship throws an anchor, and it's now anchored in, and it stays where it is. So sometimes these thoughts come, and the way you have to deal with it, just like Ibn al-Qayyim said, just completely ignore it. Don't have any impulse, don't have any feeling, don't have any reaction, because you've got to reason and think, okay, I as a believer, would I ever from my own self ever harbor or instigate such a thought? No, I wouldn't. The heart of a believer doesn't think evil thoughts about his Lord, right? These are impulses from shaitan. So the best policy is, if it comes in through this side, let it go out that side and don't even pay any attention to it. The moment you engage with the thought and you start thinking, astaghfirullah, I'm having evil thoughts, I must be so evil. My iman, I must have no iman to think even so. The moment you go there, that's it. You've now engaged with you're now battling with the thought. Just like the man going to the prayer and another man abusing him, and engaging him he's now distracted him. And he'll be embroiled with him now, right? So in the same way, you get embroiled, and now it starts becoming an actual waswasa that's going to stay in your mind, and you're going to keep fighting. So now it's like a loop. The loop goes round and round, and it feeds itself. And this is how a waswasa sets in, right? From the very beginning, you got to pay no attention, because you got to reason to yourself, I, as a believer, with a clean heart, I would never, ever, ever think such a thought, have such a feeling in relation to my Lord or to the Messenger of Allah, to the companion, whatever. I would never have such a thing. So therefore, it's got to come from outside. It's got to be from shaitan. If it's coming from shaitan, what does shaitan want from me? By pushing this thought into my head, he wants me to engage with it, to fight and to be embroiled with it, and so that he can put an anchor into the ocean of my mind. So the way to deal with it is think, okay, this thought never came from me. Why should I feel bad about it? It's got nothing to do with me. It's come from the shaitan's trying to hook something into me. So I'm going to ignore it. It cannot come from the heart of a believer, and I'm not going to feel bad about it whatsoever. Right? That's the way you deal with it. Because the moment you think, Astaghfirullah, I must be so evil for having such a thought, and do I really have it? When you start questioning yourself, that's what is intended by from the waswasa, right? You can't react like that, because that's how it becomes rooted, and now you become a victim to the continuous whisperings of the shaitan, because now they've taken root, because you've allowed him to come in and to, So these two similitudes from Ibn al-Qayyim are beautiful, because they have so many applications in so many different ways, right? It can have an application, like Ibn al-Qayyim said, literally, to religion and traversing upon the path, and to your worship. It can have an application in the realm of the mind as well, as we said, waswasa. It can even have an application even in the worldly affairs, because you have worldly pursuits, you have worldly things to seek, and and there are people who want to distract you, right? So you just ignore and continue, because you've got so many things to get on with. So these examples and similitudes given by Ibn al-Qayyim are very, very relevant, very, very beautiful. We should remember them. And then he finished by saying, وَالْقَصْدِ أَنَا فِي ذِكْرِ هَذَا الرَّفِيقِ مَا يُزِيلُ وَحْشَةَ التَّفَرُّدِ وَيَحُثُّ عَلَى السَّيْرِ وَالتَّشْمِيرِ لِلِّحَاقِ بِهِمْ. So in other words, the point being that in this companionship, so basically this is all connected to the issue of companionship. In this companionship, the fact that Allah mentioned this rafiq, this companionship of the prophets, the martyrs, the truthful, the righteous, that this is what removes from you the feeling of strangeness, and it encourages you to continue with earnest, pulling up your sleeves like this and continuing in the path without paying any attention to anybody else. And for us to be aware that as well as feeling strange, there are also people who are trying to entice us from different directions and trying to pull us this way or that way, right? So we shouldn't turn to them. And this should be connected back to the earlier thing. What did we say about the sirat? 3 types of guidance. The guidance of irshad, firstly, the guidance of tawfiq, and then the guidance in the hereafter over the bridge of hellfire. This part here is connected to that part as well, because you don't want to be diverted away from the path. Anyhow, the ayah that I mentioned earlier, إِنَّا كَفَيْنَاكَ الْمُسْتَهْزِئِينَ, right? This is, indeed, we have sufficed you from those who mock. إِنَّا كَفَيْنَاكَ الْمُسْتَهْزِئِينَ. Indeed, we have sufficed you from those who mock you. So we do not need to turn, and every time someone barks, every time someone brays, we have to now turn to them and engage with them. Why? Because this is just a distraction of the people of disbelief, or the people of innovation, or people who have other, evil intentions. So inshallah, we will stop here for today's lesson. If we continue, it would take too long. So for the sake of this, the time for Salah has entered now as well. And inshallah, we'll stop with this amount, inshallah ta'ala. So basically, in today's lesson, we have talked mainly about the straight path. The straight path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does it mean, the straight path? There's only one true religion. Every other door is shut. Then the issue of companionship on this path. Do not feel strange. Do not feel alone. And do not be distracted from this path by the many distractions that come towards you. All of this is contained within Al-Fatiha. And these are from the Al-Matalib Al-Aliyah, the lofty pursuits, lofty objectives. When we understand this, inshallah, when we pray, when you recite the Fatiha, all these meanings come to your mind and it keeps you concentrated in the prayer. And inshallah, you get more benefit out of that. وبالله التوفيق والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه